Annyeonghaseyo! Welcome to Afternoona Delight, where Leah, Megan, and Amy, romance novelists, and your K-romance guides. So grab some dekboki and listen to your new favorite unnies.
Hey, everybody.
Hello.
Hi there.
So it's someone's special birthday today.
It is the love of my life. 28-year-old Raoun.
28-year-old Rose.
I knew it was his birthday, but I'm like, he's got to be 30 now, right? And I looked it up. I was like, good Lord.
It's still
I don't
2
care.
years away.
I don't care. He's like the most beautiful human, and I wish him the happiest of birthdays.
The pictures of him from KCON with his like long wavy hair were excellent. Excellent.
I mean, I just don't understand how he can look the way he looks and do like sexy photo spread, then be in K-dramas like the most golden retriever to ever golden retriever.
Such a golden retriever.
Yeah.
So the question that I was trying to ask is, what were you doing at 28?
At 28.
Not looking like that.
No.
I was pregnant at 28.
I was planning my wedding. That didn't age well.
I was pregnant as well. I had a pregnancy loss at 27, and I got pregnant at 28. So I was pregnant.
I think I actually had my son when I was 28, I think. So I was either pregnant or with a newlywed or a newlywed or with a newborn.
I had my son 3 months after my birth, 2.5 months after my birthday. But what was interesting was I was pregnant in Hawaii. And I remember like this is why age I feel like is so, I just no longer am willing to ever get caught up on age. Like sometimes it'll like niggle at me and I'm like, fuck it. I can remember being pregnant with my son, 28, and walking into the office and having like the aunties laugh at me and be like, oh my gosh, you are such an old mom. Like, how are you doing? Basically, like, how are you doing
at 28?
Yes. Like,
I had my first one at 31.
Hashtag washed up, hashtag like done. Because culturally there you have your children are very, very young. I mean, my job at that time was working with high school students, and I was pregnant with, a lot of students. And culturally there's a lot of nuance there. And so, like the way that like, children are kind of like collectively raised there and things like that. Like there's no stigma. Like it's just really just like culturally embedded that like people were having their kids generally pretty young. But I was like a centurion with like my old ass pussy about to have a kid.
Good God.
And now and it got into my head. That's what I'm saying. Like I incepted it. Like, oh, I must be pretty old. I'm 28. Like I must be like, I felt like I was like pretty old. And now I think back and I'm like, boy, I was not. Like,
yeah, I think I was a baby still at 28.
Yeah, I still felt so young at 28.
Me too.
Can you hear the cicadas in my room right now?
No,
you can't.
In your bedroom?
No, they're
are they in your bedroom?
It sounds like they are. It's so loud. Like I have my window cracked because it's actually cooling off outside, and I need the air in my room. But I took out my earbud because I'm like, is that me? And it's me. But they sound even louder when I have my earbuds in, so I was wondering if the mic was picking them up.
Oh no!
Well,
I've been finding a lot
listener, we have some special guests.
Yeah, I've been finding
Chicago cicadas,
the little exoskeletons all around. The little, when they come out.
I haven't seen many of them, but I hear them every night. So I don't know.
I've seen evidence of them.
Yeah.
We used to get them a lot at our old house. So speaking of Raoun and his birthday and tying it to the topic of our pod today, on a scale of 1 to 10, let's ask Amy this question. On a scale of 1 to 10, how well does Raoun do Angst?
Oh, 10.
10.
Absolute 10. Yeah. I mean, you You didn't see Extraordinary You. That boy can angst.
I didn't, but he was pretty angsty in Tomorrow.
Yeah, he was angsty in Tomorrow too, I guess a little bit. Yeah, and also in Destined with You, because it's funny because in the same drama, he can be a golden retriever and then like super angsty, which is what I love.
Yeah.
So he can do it all within one drama. But I would say even in Extraordinary, more angsty was EJ-uk.
Okay.
Was
He does
more angsty
angst.
in that one. Yeah. I mean, like
So
he's yes, maybe Rowan's a 9 because EJ-uk is a total 10 for him.
I was like, I'm giving it all to EJ-uk in the angst department.
Yeah.
But I think that's also still because King's Affection, the non-angst of Rowan and King's Affection really just like, lives within me.
So BTS Megan and I were talking the other day because we were losing our shit over that magazine spread together. And she's like, okay, put it in your calendar. She's like, we are buddy watching The King's Affection in October. I was like, all right, I'm in. I'm in.
Okay, good. Well, let's get to today's topic, shall we?
We shall.
When we talk about K-dramas on this podcast, we get asked similar questions often. How is the romance? Is there violence? And another question that's the topic of today's episode, what's the angst level? Some of us, whether reading a novel or watching a drama, want to suffer. Leah. We want high drama, high angst, loads of emotional pain. We want goblin levels sobbing. Others want minimal to no suffering, fluff, all the ooey gooey of a romance without the trauma. And others are Goldilocks, medium pain, some angst with plenty of happy times. You know, a balance. And maybe if you're like me, you want it all depending on your mood. So today, we're going to talk about it all. From the fluffiest of fluff dramas with no serial killers to heart-wrenching angst that we think about for months and years later. So first of all, how do you guys define angst?
So I can give my definition, but when I did kind of a universal deep dive, like angst is one of these words that does get used in different contexts. So I'm going to give my context for how I use angst and define angst, which essentially means that emotional boo-boos are present. Like I would consider angst to be a signal to me that we are going to see a lot of internal emotion. We're going to have regret, potentially. We could have challenges with self-love or like imposter phenomena. But there's turmoil, like there's some sort of turmoil. And for me, when I think of like external conflicts and things like that, it's to me, that's more like there's drama happening. I mean, it's hard because we say like K-drama, but like to me, there's drama, there's conflict, like the world is out there happening, but angst is happening to me internally. And so when I'm thinking of angst, it's like the characters are going through it inside.
Yeah, it's like this heavy weight. It's this heavy emotional weight that they are carrying, that their character is carrying, and it informs a lot of decisions that they make. And you can have that with or without the external stuff that Leah's talking about. But yeah, the angst itself is that like heavy emotional burden. That's how I see it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think angst is always going to be like internal conflict. And I think like, you know, I don't know, you have a horror movie that's suspenseful, and I think there's a difference between suspense and angst in that both of them have you kind of like on the edge of your seat. But suspense has you on the edge of your seat, like you have to keep watching, you have to know what happens, where angst has you on the edge of your seat because you want some sort of like resolution to the inner conflict. At least that's how I look at it. So both, because I like both. So probably my favorite dramas often are the ones that have both. So I love this like massive external conflict, but that runs parallel with this like internal angst.
Yeah, it's a good pairing.
So we're all romance writers, and we've all written some level of angst. So one question that I have been asked before is if I personally feel angst when I'm writing. I'm not sure if you guys have been asked that. So do we go through the same emotional trauma that we put our readers through?
So I haven't been asked this, but I have been asked, like, do you get turned on when you're writing your own sex scenes? And the answer to that is no, because it gets very technical. Like you're trying to remember like whose arm was where, when. Anyway, So this question kind of hit me on two levels. So I wasn't sure if I was answering it correctly, so I went both ways. So the first is that yes, I do feel the emotions and angst when I'm writing them. Um, and I think it's because I have strong empathy, especially when I experience it in fiction. And I think also that that's a sign of a good story when you feel the words on the page as if what's happening to your character is actually happening to you. So, not trying to pat myself on the back, but the way that I can be confident that an emotional scene is hopefully going to is going to resonate with readers is if I can feel it myself as I'm crafting the scene. The other level that I kind of took the question is, do I give characters my own traumas to work through, like my own angst?
Oh, okay, yeah.
Do we go through it with them? And again, I'd say the answer is a little bit yes, like sometimes. I think a lot of writers are able to work through their own angst by helping their characters work their way through it. So in that sense too, you would definitely, or I would definitely be feeling it, especially if I'm, transferring my own emotional burden to the character.
Yeah, I don't necessarily put my characters through things I've been through, but sometimes I give them situations that set them up for like the same emotional damage that I have, and I have them work because I don't want to like be my character. So
no, and I don't write autobiographical.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want people reading it and being like, "Oh, I remember when Amy did that." Like
exactly, but sometimes like I put them through some sort of like similar trauma and make them work through it, even if it's like a situation where they to simplify it, like, oh, don't give up or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But as far as angst, I'm the same way. Like I feel like a tightening in my chest when I'm writing angst of my characters. But I would say, so if I'm watching a drama or I'm reading a book with high angst, that angst stays with me even when I'm not watching the show. And that's why I have to like binge read or binge watch. Whereas when I'm writing, I do try to put myself in the scene, obviously, so I can like describe it and narrate it properly. But as soon as I'm done writing, it goes away because I know the ending. Like I know how I'm going to resolve it. So in my mind, it's like already still resolved. And so I don't like continually feel that angst. So sometimes it's really nice. Sometimes it's really fun to put your characters through something really tough that you know is going to agonize the reader. But I always have this little voice in the back of my head that's like, I know something you don't know. Like I know
exactly.
how I know how I'm going to fix this and ease this angst.
So that's funny because I am almost the direct opposite.
Okay.
So I would say in the scene, like first, like there's like the raw dog draft stage where I'm just normally just like a hot mess writing anything. But I think like where I tend to write the most is in my editing. And so that's where I would get a little bit more technical. Like I think about like I think a lot in my editing. I sometimes overthink it. It's almost my writing's better when I think about it less. But when I get involved in it, I would say that it can affect my mood, where later throughout the day then or with my family, it almost like I feel like I can, if I'm writing a challenging scene, I feel like I can present more challenging in my home life than I would otherwise. But
so
I don't
stays with you.
But I think it stays with me like after I leave it. I'm not in it because when I'm writing, I'm very much in my head, like thinking about it.
Okay.
But then I think it's like I'm like like I feel it later, just like I would in any like because I'm a feeler later for most things. Like when I'm in the moment of like crisis, I'm very calm, always in crisis.
Right, you are.
Well, not always, but mostly.
You're very good in crisis, yeah.
But then afterwards, I tend to lose it to some degree.
It's like the adrenaline keeps you calm. It's like the reverse of like other, you know what I mean? And then when it calms down, you're like, oh my God. And you're like overthinking kind of. That's interesting that you're the opposite. That's so.
But what is also funny is when I get questions, because I've had questions and those are, I'm always impressed. Like I'm impressed when I get any question about anything because like good for someone asking a question. But a question that I've had is like, I have had the question, like, have you personally, I'm going to talk about sex scenes because they're interesting. Have you, like when somebody's like, have you experienced what you're writing about? And if somebody like writes you that, I'm like, what kind of question? Like, what kind of conversation do you want to have here? Like, I'm not sure like what we're talking about.
Right.
But, but yeah, I find that like, that's always an an interesting question to me, but I feel like for me, when I am happy, because I'm rarely happy with, I'm like very critical. I'm a Virgo with a Virgo rising. I'm very critical with a lot of my output. But when I feel happy with something, it's when I feel like there's some sort of vulnerability that like I've been able to like get out of myself onto the page in some way that I feel like is part of like that great like human conversation where we all are like a little bit more vulnerable. So when I feel like, I mean, I don't think like a reader can tell when like a piece of my vulnerability comes out, but I feel like that's when I feel more satisfied.
Right. So name both a K-drama actor and actress who do angst well, at least that you think.
So I picked like not just actors, but actors from like specific dramas to
That
give
works.
examples. Okay. Because we already mentioned a couple. So Kim Soo-hyun in It's Okay to Not Be Okay. Like he's all angst in that. And I love it. And he's so good. And Bae Suzy in Duna.
Ugh, she was so good.
So good.
And the actor was great in that. Like he did angst really
Yes.
well.
I still think Duna was my favorite drama last year. I think it's so underrated.
It was very surprising to me.
Massively
like I didn't
underrated.
Yeah.
And I forget about it now sometimes, and I need to like remember it and bring it up more in podcasts because it was so phenomenal.
It was
still the best kiss I've ever seen.
Oh, it was such a good kiss. But like that drama was angst.
The whole thing.
The whole thing, but like
it
was like I don't like for some that can be really heavy and like be too much. And I mention it later, like that I don't want a drama that's all angst, but like that one did it for me because I think all angst with a good romance works.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. For me, I went with Lee Jun-ho, and this is still without having seen the Red Sleeve, which I know he's going to bring angst to the Red Sleeve, but I'm planning to watch it. So this is omitting that. I'm still going with Lee Jun-ho because I have seen him. I mean, Rain or Shine.
Rain or Shine stands on its own and is enough.
It's all you need.
If he did no other drama, I would be like, he does angst great. Like I don't need any more examples. Than Rain or
Shine. Then the other one that sticks out for me that neither of you have seen, but a lot of our listeners have seen, is Shin Min-ah in Our Blues. But look, honestly, I'm gonna like caution this one too, and say that like I'm also gonna say it's more angst to me with Hometown Cha Cha Cha. Our Blues is more like mental health and trauma, but there like within that is some angst. But I just like there is a difference too between like angst and then like postpartum depression, mental health.
Right. For sure.
Like
for sure.
But yeah, I'm going to be talking about Shin Min-ah's performance in Our Blues for the rest of my life and saying, yes, angst touches on it. It is deeper. It is the sadness and depression is deeper. But that's a bigger conversation too of like, when do we like, what kind of needle is that? But Shin Min-ah brings feelings so well.
To the surprise of no one, I'm going to say Yoo Sung-ho, particularly in I'm Not a Robot, but also that freaking cat drama, Invisible Cat. You can't tell me that he didn't bring the angst over fucking cat. Okay.
Like I thought it was going to be a silly little drama about a cat, and Megan and I are crying,
bawling over this stupid cat. Oh my God. Anyway, Yoo Sung-ho is just amazing. And then I just the Queen Kim Ji-won, and I haven't even seen her in a lot of things, but I just love her expressions and how well she kind of keeps that like tension level. She's just awesome. She can do angst so great.
I mean, she does. Yeah. I mean, she does it in Heirs. She does it in Descendants of the Sun, Queen of Tears.
Fight for My Way. So much of the emotional weight of that relationship was carried by her because Park Seo-joon's character Park Seo-joon did what he needed to do, but that character was not.
He wasn't angsty.
He wasn't an angsty character. So the weight of that, the angst of that romance was carried by her.
Yeah.
And she completely carried it on her back in heels.
Yes. And I would say it was like a light touch. I mean, like, because if we're going with the Kinsey scale of angst,
Oh, it was very low.
it was very
Correct.
genuine.
Very
It
low.
was genuine.
But it was genuine. Yeah.
You know, I feel bad that we didn't throw this one in here, so I'm going to just also toss in Idong-wook
Oh,
in
the
Goblin.
single tier.
Yeah, I mean the single tier on the bridge, never over it.
The single tier alone carries the same angst as like entire other drama, like other entire dramas.
Yes.
But Idong-wook accomplished with one single tier on a bridge, staring at jade rings. Oh God, I love him. I love him. Okay, so one thing we did in order to kind of give a larger sample size is we asked our Patreon for recs for high angst and low angst, just so you, dear listener, can get some good recs from people, you know, who have seen more dramas than the three of us. And our Patreon, among all of them, have seen a very, very large amount of dramas. So we're not going to read every one. I think we'll just go through and read some of their recommendations. And you can, if you're looking for high angst or low angst, you can pick one out.
Can I just say that I haven't looked at this post yet, so I didn't even know that you used Kim Soo-hyun
Oh, I did.
as the image.
I did use a crying Kim Soo-hyun in Patreon as the
post image.
Yeah. So I like Soraya's post. She says, I know if a drama has high angst when I start to have visceral anxiety reactions. First, I hold my chest with my hands, then I pull a pillow or my knees closer to my chest. Yes, all in an attempt to protect myself from deep anxiety or dread. And she says, if all that fails, then I have to pause or drop altogether. And yeah, I totally agree. She says, I felt a lot of angst watching One Spring Night, which I will mention later because I agree. She says, another thing that develops a lot of angst is a character's desperation for connection coupled with many barriers stacked against them. Yes, as displayed in My Dearest. Also on my list of high angst is Flower of Evil, Beloved Summer, and Queen of Tears.
Flower of Evil is a good one.
And then she says, rounding out my low angst list is Love to Hate You, Hospital Playlist, Romance is a Bonus Book, and Her Private Life. I've seen 3 out of 3 of those, and I 100% agree.
Yeah, I like those.
Yeah.
I'm going to read one from Sarah. Sarah R, not Sarah from Afternoona Asks, just in case she's on here too. I don't want to confuse. But I like what she says because she says, I agree that the definition of angst is highly personal, for sure. For me, I don't like it when the angst comes from not talking to each other. But I love dramas that are low angst and have steadfast relationships. So there's that. So my continuum. Too angsty for me and annoying because they didn't talk. Love Struck in the City, which I haven't seen, and Queen of Tears, and fair on Queen of Tears. Just enough angst, parentheses, for me, so for her, just between lovers. I mean, I feel like that's high on all of our lists. And low angst with steadfast relationships, King the Land, My Sweet Mobster. Oh, I'm in the middle of that now. And Top Star Ubek.
It is interesting because we have some of these questions where some Patreon members say this was high angst for me, while others say this was low angst for me.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting. Emma has a good description. She says, this has been interesting to think about. I guess I classify dramas as high angst when 2 conditions are met. 1, when I'm going through the feels to a similar level as the characters, despite differences in life experience. And 2, when I believe the showrunners could actually possibly Game of Thrones it and deliberately not deliver a just ending or an HEA.
Oh my gosh.
So high angst for her, The Glory, Marriage Contract, Itaewon Class, Death's Game, Something in the Rain, Love Like the Galaxy, and some aspects of Chloe. And then her low angst were Twinkling Watermelon, Queen of Tears, Perfect Marriage, Revenge. So she said even if they had heart-wrenching moments, they didn't feel angsty to her, which is fair. I like the definition that you feel that, like, maybe you feel the angst the characters are feeling.
Right. Yeah, totally. And that is something that Leah and I talked about in our Queen of Tears podcast, which actually dropped today, the day that we're recording this, is we never were worried for any of the characters in Queen of Tears. Like, even though there was some like high like drama things happening, that there was a lot of plot armor that we knew were keeping them safe. And so it wasn't angsty for us watching it.
Aaron says, my high angst picks would be Move to Heaven, If You Wish Upon Me, and Something in the Rain. I've seen the first two and definitely agree. And then low angst, I always recommend, this is Aaron again, is Dolly and the Cocky Prince, Business Proposal, and My Roommate is a Gumio. I also agree. My Roommate is a Gumio is not super angsty. It's it reminds me a little bit of My Sweet Mobster in that there's so much silliness that it really cuts the angst, if that makes sense. So,
and I feel like I agree on Business Proposal. I feel like Business Proposal tried to put some angst in there that didn't really work to be angsty with the hero's trauma. Like it was, for me, it was like too surface level for me to feel the angst that he was feeling from it.
Right. Charlotte says, I think a lot of the commenters agreed for high angst, nevertheless. So Charlotte says a love triangle creates double the angst. Angst for the characters and angst for the viewers. So true. And she said, I'd also vote for the worst of evil for the panic-inducing levels of torment and deception. Hell yeah, I agree. Which I actually do not recommend the worst of evil. Mainly because I thought it really tanked the ending, but it was very good at the beginning.
So here's a good one from Lynn. They say, I can't think of very many low angst shows. Love to Hate You, soundtrack number 1, maybe, she says. There's also a difference between having a gentle storytelling style and low angst. Like Hometown Cha-Cha-Cha can get very angsty, but the style is very chill, which reflects the town in a way. I think I end up abandoning a show if there isn't a lot of angst because it doesn't keep my attention.
Yeah. This is interesting too. Emily says, that this is personal, and it is. It is.
Yes.
I would say angst. I would say there's some general dramas that I would say most people consider high and low angst, but there are many that are in the middle. So she says, for example, Mr. Queen would be one of the first that comes to mind to me for recommending a low angst drama. Whereas, Sarah responds, oh, but, I actually put Queen as high angst, especially the back half.
Because it felt angsty for her while she was watching it. So,
yeah.
Very personal.
Claudia says, no, there is no one size fits all when it comes to angst.
No.
It's very, very true. Very, very true. Okay, well, geez, I mean, they give a lot of, so if you want more, well, join our Patreon. Because there's a million recommendations in there.
Somebody did shout out Chicken Nugget is low angst too.
Chicken Nugget. Yeah, that was low angst. Thanks for the Chicken Nugget shout out. Oh, God.
Those are good, though.
Yeah. And now it's time for everyone's favorite segment of the episode. It's our K-pop rec of the week. And this time we have Leah.
I am going to rec an entire album that is very short. So that feels fair to me. So I am going to recommend Muse by Park Jimin. It is he's my wrecker. It's really hard to say because Suga is my alt bias in like everything. And so that's like a pretty big bias. So I don't want to like underscore the importance of Jimin in my personal life because he is a very important member of, I'm OT7. I love all the members, but there's something about Jimin that, as has been said before, pulls at your heartstrings. I just really cheer him on. Face is an amazing album to me, and he has followed it up with a sophomore solo album called Muse. And this album took like me probably a good 18 hours to sit with because I just wasn't sure. It was very different to Face. He took some like sound inspiration, probably a little bit from the Beatles, and in specific terms, kind of like that Sgt. Pepper Lonely Hearts Club Band. He kind of plays around with the theme of a band. He names the group that he produces with the Smeraldo Marching Band, and there's a very like happy poppy song that he does with the rapper Loco on the album. He kicks off the album with a very like ethereal song about like basically a song about falling in love, and then in the end what happens when you're out of love and you're back to like you go through like, I have a crush, this is fun, everything's great, the circus music starts, then you move into kind of like some of that more like slow sexy time, and you're gonna like, you know, be adults about it. And then in the end, you're kind of alone again with the big power pop song that's all in English that he produced in New York that's called Who? The idea being like, who is my heart waiting for? I'm back alone again, now like seeking love again. And so that's kind of like the theme. And then he ends with like a poppy fan song. And so it's short, it's sweet. One thing I think of big note is he has a very distinctive voice. His voice is very high, and very beautiful and light and very airy. And I think it's kind of been like, he's done a lot of work to like protect it and save it. And that shows in this album. Like he's been doing a lot of like vocal retraining to kind of sing more from his chest, to have kind of like a healthier vocal technique. And so it has influenced his vocals, but I think in a really positive way. It's kind of like a richer, more mature sound while still being like that like beautiful, ethereal sound that he's kind of known for. So I think listen to Muse, listen to it with the idea that it is kind of about crush to love to lust, or crush to fun to lust to, you know, being on your own again. And yeah, it's a beautiful, fun, short album to get down with.
Great. Okay. Thank you. So now we're going to get back to angst. On the blog Bookcase and Coffee, Becky, no last name was listed as the author, so I'm not going to like, you know, stalk her to find her last name. So thank you, Becky. Wrote a great article about different types of angst in romance novels, and the types listed are easily transferable to K-dramas. So we're going to go through some of the types and how they apply to dramas we love, or maybe not love. I don't know how this is going to go. I don't know what Amy and Leah have up their sleeves. I would like to add that many dramas have multiple forms of angst. Just because we mention a drama in one angst category doesn't mean it can't fit into another as well. Also, some K-dramas love to torture us with like multiple levels of overlapping angst. So the dramas we mention aren't in any way end all or be all, but just some examples for discussion purposes. So, number one angst type. Again, this is from the blog Bookcase and Coffee. Emotional conflict. This angst often stems from emotional conflict within the characters. This could involve past traumas, insecurities, or personal demons that prevent them from fully embracing their feelings for each other. For example, one character may have trust issues due to a previous relationship, leading to inner turmoil and hesitation in pursuing a new love interest. So yeah, what's your take on this, and what's a drama that's a good example?
So I was kind of looking at it like, what if we had a drama that just had this, right? And so this is a good, like, this type of angst is good for those who like quieter conflicts, because emotional conflict relies much more on character than on anything external. And I think a great example of this is Rain or Shine. Like, without giving any, we've talked about it so many times already, and I think this is kind of going to like top the list, you know, for angst. Without giving any spoilers for this great drama, like both the hero and the heroine are kind of blocked from finding current happiness because of past traumas. Like, there is a big external thing that happens to them to cause their trauma, but in the present day, it's mostly the emotional fallout from that big thing that happened. And they both have extreme survivor's guilt from surviving this tragedy that makes them both feel like they don't deserve their own happiness. So all of their sort of, you know, present day blocks from happiness are all internal. And they do it so well. So
yeah,
well.
they do. Yeah, for me, I said healer. And while healer does have a massive external conflict that takes up the majority of the drama, the internal conflict of the character of healer, played by Ji Chung-wook, is so important to the drama. So no matter what happens to that external conflict, no matter if he beats all the baddies, okay, it doesn't matter, because he'll still never be happy unless he heals his abandonment issues, heals his like isolationist mentality. Like, unless he fixes that internal conflict caused by his like past trauma, he's not going to be happy. And that part of healer is what I love the most.
And that's a great example where you can have more than one type of angst.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah.
I'm going with the Eighth Sense, which I don't feel like I talk about enough because it was a beautiful drama.
Yeah.
So this is a Korean BL, but honestly, like, yes, I mean, basically the characters in it have a queer romance. If that's totally, it feels different than other BLs. And I'm not saying it's not like the other girls because I love BLs, but I'm just saying
like
this one had a little bit of more of like, I'd say like an indie vibe to it than
100%.
it felt like kind of like an extended movie more than like a show BL, like just in the vibe and the look for what we see in Korean BLs. But again, we have it set in the university stage of life, which lends itself to angst like few other times really do. We've got post-military life adjustments, we have surfing, and then we have a mental character who's dealing with trauma. So again, different to angst, but adjacent to angst, dealing with deep trauma. But from that trauma spins off a lot of angst. We have we have a very sunshine character, and then we have a character who is in some real turmoil and going through some stuff and blows a little bit hot and cold, which also can lead to, but like, I think when you blow hot and cold, it can be really frustrating for a viewer. But at the same time, if you kind of understand the reasons why, and as it unpacks, like if you start to trust there's good reasons to why they're acting like this, and they're not just acting like this because they're like an underdeveloped hedgehog, but because there's like pain there, and then it makes you curious, like what is the source of the pain? And then how can they heal from that pain? And that's like that hope in the journey to me that can make angst like a powerful plot point sometimes, is like, where's the healing? Because we're all hurting in some way. And so when you can find that like relatable hurt and then be like, what are they going to do to heal from it? To me, that can be just as satisfying and then when that mirrors into the romance, that can make for a very satisfying romance for me.
Yeah, and also Eighth Sense is one where it was kind of the same, like what I said with Healer, like the main character cannot be happy until he heals his inner trauma. And it's a drama that shows this character working through it with a therapist, which is amazing.
That's big. Yeah.
So yeah, you really see the healing that this character has to do, which is directly related to like, yeah, his past trauma. That's a great example, Leah.
Okay. External obstacles. Sometimes external factors can introduce angst into a romance story. These obstacles could be societal, familial, or situational, creating barriers that keep the lovers apart. For instance, a forbidden love between characters from feuding families or different social classes can inject a sense of urgency and despair into the romance. What is your take on this type of angst, and what's a drama that has it?
I would say for this one, honestly, Crash Landing on You is probably the one that has a good example of this, because the main obstacle in that romance, there was a lot of angst in relation to like other things, but the main thing keeping them apart was strictly the external conflict of them living in different Koreas. I mean, and not being able to cross. So I would say that was the main source of the angst level, which I think is also a reason people love those characters so much, because the characters themselves, you see them often at their best to a degree, but you see them how well they like love each other, and so you just want them to be together. So you're just frustrated and angsty over this external conflict that is keeping them apart.
I mean, that's if you want a textbook definition of external conflict.
Yeah. I mean, North and
have
South
a character live in North Korea and a character live in South Korea.
That's pretty much it. I mentioned Mr. Sunshine too. I was going to let Leah take it, but I think she has a different example. But Mr. Sunshine is also most of the angst stems from like freaking war. Okay. So
yeah.
I actually went with Something in the Rain, which is a drama that I did on a pod here with Sarah. Neither of you have seen, but in it, a lot of the angst that's happening is coming from family background and social standing. And so that becomes like the source of, when your family is like, look, the person you want to be with, they have enough, like their family has enough dings against them that we're not going to sanction this relationship. That can become a source, I think, of angst and pain and turmoil, because then you have to choose, especially, and Sarah does an excellent job unpacking this in the podcast, is when you have this like Confucianism ideal with family and elders and honoring like parents' wishes, yet your heart's calling you somewhere else. And then that becomes a real source of tension and then pain, which leads to angst. So, so if you want to hear more about that, I think Sarah does an excellent job, especially talking about the source of the angst, which is the heroine's mother in the drama. And I think she does a really great, and it was a really useful way for me with a Western lens to kind of think about. It didn't change me to liking the mom's role, but it gave me a little more empathy to like why there were decisions being made and forced upon the characters. Because again, there was a lot of cultural nuance involved that I'm still going to say, I push against some of what was happening, but it is, it made a lot of sense. There were a lot of great points, and it caused a shit ton of angst.
Yeah.
You know what else is a really big external obstacle? Zombies.
Massive external
Zombies.
zombies.
I put All of Us Are Dead for this one. And like, don't be mistaken if you haven't seen All of Us Are Dead. Like, it's not like there is external obstacle keeping, lovers apart, but there are also some good, like emotional, like baggage that goes with it. Like, let's say, we've been best friends all our lives and you just told me that you're in love with me in the middle of a zombie apocalypse. Like, there's some heavy, teenage angst going on, all while they're trying to not get bit.
And you have a crush on one girl who's turning into a zombie before your eyes.
Yes. It's rough.
And you see her eating someone's neck and you're still like, I love you. Oh God, I love that drama. It's not funny, the drama.
No,
so
it's not. There's nothing funny in it. I mean, okay, there's a couple of tiny funny moments, but mostly it's not.
It's fantastic. So, okay, number 3 is miscommunication. Misunderstandings and miscommunication are classic sources of angst in romance novels. Characters may fail to express their true feelings or may misinterpret each other's actions and words, leading to unnecessary complications and heartache. This creates a sense of longing and frustration in readers who want the characters to come together.
So this can be a source of annoyance if it's not done well, the miscommunication angst. But when it is done well, when it's, when it's a matter of like, we could just have a conversation and things will be fine, that I'm not here for. But like, I am good when miscommunication is done well and is done for a reason. And I think a drama that does it fantastically is Coffee Prince, because the miscommunication is perpetuated. Our hero, Han Kyul, thinking that the heroine Eun-chan is male because Eun-chan thinks they will lose their job since the coffee shop only hires male employees as like part of its shtick. Like, this could have been super problematic and instead blossomed into one of the best romances I've ever seen. And this was something, yes, that could be solved by a conversation, but that conversation could have cost Eun-chan her job and she was supporting her family. And so it was completely understandable miscommunication that they let continue for a bulk of the drama.
So I'm going to list 2 of these because I have one that's done well, in my opinion, and one that's not.
Okay.
So first one, I'm not a robot. Stop. I have to bring it up. Don't fight with me. I think I have it as an example for another or I have it. I don't care. Okay. Just fight me.
It's your show. It's your show. You do what you want.
I Am Not a Robot has a misunderstanding that kind of blossoms into a full-blown lie, but there's a very good reason for it. She thinks if she tells the truth, he's going to die. And spoiler, when the truth does come out, he does almost die. So her fears are realized. It was a real, valid fear, and the reason she kept going with the lie and letting him misunderstand things. I love that, because normally mistaken identities and all that kind of stuff grates on me. Like Business Proposal did it, but then Business Proposal did it for comedy. That was not an angsty drama. So I was okay with that too, because it was like for comedy. I don't like when one simple conversation can end things. Our Beloved Summer, I realize some people absolutely love Our Beloved Summer, and it's like their comfort drama. I did not enjoy it. I mean, it was fine, but it was not super enjoyable for me. And the main reason is because the main characters just wouldn't talk. There was like things that they could say to clear up their like bad feelings for each other. I don't know.
Animosity.
Thank you. It's like brain is like not braining at 10 p.m. Anyway, yeah, their animosity for each other. They could have cleared it up like in episode 1 or so. I just didn't. I still to this day do not understand what happened with that drama and why it went on as long as it did. So it frustrated me, but it did create high levels of angst.
So I went with Duma. I went with Duna for this. And in many ways, miscommunication, I will forgive miscommunication, especially in that new adult age, because you're not a grown-up. Like you're still like you are technically a grown-up, you are a legal adult, but you're still getting your toolkit on how to have difficult conversations, express hurt and vulnerability, ask for what you need. I mean, truly, I think sometimes I get like a little bit annoyed too when people just get like annoyed even with like adults having miscommunication or like not sharing it, because I'm like, I look around and I don't see, I mean, a lot of adults who are like, I have it nailed. I am good all the time. I mean, we have our moments.
It's true.
And so, yeah. And so for me in this, there was a lot of like wanting and longing or hurt and pain, especially coming from like what the K-pop industry had kind of like her career had wrought on her. But the fact that she like had the goal to get back into it and didn't have like all the words to say exactly how that made her feel. And then what it means to be like like to fall for like a normie, somebody like not in the industry, when you know this industry breaks people with like utter ruthlessness. And how do you have like the way to say, look, I want back in on that. And like, I'm not sure there's not really a place for you there, yet I really want you to. I mean, these are hard conversations to have. And so I felt like there was a lot where like, yes, if they sat down, could they have had a conversation about it? I mean, sure. But like, I would say that would feel unbelievable. It was much better to be like, I don't have all the answers. I just know I want this, but I know it's hard to want this. And this may be a bad idea too. I'm also going to say Duna's only 9 episodes. So the fact that they can't have like full blown adult conversations throughout most of this is a short drama. And so it's not like it drags it out for like 16 to 22 episodes where you're like by the end, like dying over it. So I think the condensed length made me much more forgiving for the fact that they kind of sometimes just couldn't find their big kid words to say their feelings.
To me, the inability to communicate properly in Duna was the most believable, I think, of any drama with that type of like trope or storyline. When they would speak to each other and you could tell they were trying to say their truth and they didn't know how to, I could physically feel my own throat close up. Like I got it. Do you know what I mean? I remember being like a kid on the phone, not a kid, or like a teenager, and like that age, that new adult age, being on the phone with like a boyfriend, and like I just couldn't get the words out of how I felt. And so I remember being like my high school boyfriend, we would sit on the phone in complete silence, angry and angsty.
Yeah.
And so
I've been there.
And, yeah. And for that drama it took me back to that moment. That's why I love that drama so much, because it made me remember and believe that time period like in my life. So excellent example.
Mm-hmm. Unrequited love. Unrequited love is a potent source of angst in romance books. When one character loves the other deeply, but that love isn't reciprocated, at least initially, it can lead to intense emotional turmoil. This unbalanced dynamic keeps readers engaged as they hope for a resolution. I feel like before we give our examples, like we get so much of this in K-drama with like the second leads a lot of the time. Like, and so I think we have so many great like second lead examples, but I also like love that, you know, that we can find some main lead examples of it too.
Yeah.
But the second leads are usually all about the unrequited love.
It is. Like, shout out to Eungi from Her Private Life. That's where I met Ambo Hyun.
The most unrequited.
With his sad suit, the most unrequited love, with his unfulfilled. No, he did confess and she turned him down. I mean, I just loved it, but that's not my example. So my example is actually Itaewon Class.
It's a good one. I totally forgot about that. That's a really good one.
Yeah. And first of all, let me say Itaewon Class is angsty for a multitude of reasons. Okay. I am only speaking about the romance in this. Her unrequited love of Park Seo-joon lasted, I mean, what, 20 episodes? I mean, Itaewon Class was long.
9/10 of the drama.
9/10 of the drama. She remained devoted and loyal. And he was like, nope. Like, I mean,
he's like, I am married to my revenge. I will get to later.
Yeah. But oh man. I mean, every time she would look at him, you just like felt it in your chest, you know? I was like, girl.
But I also loved that she was unapologetically in love with him and like would just say it.
Yeah. And then her friend had unrequited love with her. Remember that?
Yes.
His like like the son of his enemy or so grandson of his enemy or whatever. Oh, so there was like multiple levels of unrequited love.
So I want to play off of that for my choice because I also went with a second male lead. The king of angst, the god of angst, the OG of angst, Mr. Queen, sad cousin. Yeah. No one's sadder than sad cousin.
Oh, that's where I fell in love with
who loves his cousin.
Yeah, I knew.
Who has a dude living in her.
Yeah,
and doesn't love the dude. He wants the original back.
Version 1.0.
Oh my god. The faces Naomi wakes.
Oh,
me to this day.
I mean, seriously, I was like, who is this man? Like, who is he?
He's such a goober in real life. So to go back and watch those scenes, I'm like, how did he do this?
Oh, so good.
Yeah.
I'm going to say even that he is never, I mean, I know he'll capture magic for me again. He's never captured the magic of sad cousin for me again.
No,
I mean, he was great in Marry My Husband, but he's not like that. No. Like he is a beautiful vehicle for the heroine to get what she needs.
Correct.
And I was there for it.
Yeah. And Marry My Husband. I want another sad cousin role for him. Ugh.
So for mine, I put Hospital Playlist. I think we could go with so many different characters in Hospital Playlist with Unrequited Love because there were so many crushes in Hospital Playlist and people not, one-sided love for a long part of it. But I'm going with our leads. My man, Iek Jun, and his unrequited love for Songhwa. And her unrequited love for him. Like it goes back and forth and there's reasons why. Without giving away the whole drama. But I love that they both had unrequited feelings for each other at one point in time. And that we, as the audience, because we knew they were like OTP, like meant to be, to just writhe in our seats, like waiting for it to happen. And they made us wait.
Mm-hmm.
It was great angst.
It was. Okay, insecurity and self-doubt. Characters in a romance novel often grapple with personal insecurities and self-doubt, which can hinder their ability to accept love and be vulnerable. Watching them overcome these obstacles and grow emotionally can be a source of angst and eventual satisfaction for readers. So, anyone have any examples?
So I've reached back to my holo love for this, because our heroine has face blindness, which is a really interesting thing for the drama to tackle. And her face blindness kind of keeps her from being social and, keeps her from sort of like finding her way in the world until she like gets these hologram glasses and puts them on and can see Holo, which is the hero, sort of, and she can see his face. So he's the only face that she can see, but it's when she's wearing the Holo glasses. And so, of course, she develops this relationship with this like extremely intelligent AI that keeps getting more intelligent and just so happens to be modeled after the creator. So there is Holo, and then there's the guy who created Holo, and they are, they look exactly the same. There's much more to the story than that, but I thought it was a really, really interesting take on insecurity and going to something, like seeing people's faces. And I just recently learned more about face blindness in an awesome book by Catherine Center that I'll give a shout out for called Hell a Stranger. I've mentioned it here before, which also deals with that and how that can hinder you being confident to be romantic.
For sure. Okay, next is longing and separation. God, this angst is always going to get me. Physical or emotional separation between the romantic leads can create a profound sense of longing and emptiness, whether it's due to distance, a breakup, or external circumstances. The yearning to be together can be a driving force in the story, heightening the romantic tension. So I'm going to go first, and the first one I'm going to mention is Love Between Fairy and Devil. So without giving spoilers, there is a moment where they are separated. And the hero is trying to find a way for them to reconnect again. And he doesn't know if it will even work. And the lengths he goes to and the things he does to get her back. And then the things she does in an effort to save him. I just can't deal with that drama. There were so many separations.
I was going to say there's more than one separation, and they were high angst.
Massively high angst. Every single time I was dying inside. So for me, that drama, the other one would be My Dearest. The separations in My Dearest had me wanting to throw up. Like I was physically ill during some of their separations because I needed them to be back together so badly.
I'm just going to do one, and I'm going to do Moon Lover, Scarlet Heart, Ryo, because I'm the only one, again, who's seen this masterpiece of soapy loveness. And I did a podcast on this with Sarah as well from Afternoona Army, K-drama this. She wasn't picking up what this drama was putting down. And it's in my top 5.
I know you love
it. I would say that this is a time travel. So we have some built-in separation. And then we also have like duty separation, like, to king and country and dealing with that. So that pulls couples apart. And then we also have separation based on self-worth issues. Like you can even be in like the same general proximity of someone, but when you feel as if like you are in your Phantom of the Opera era with your artful scar and mask and just not good enough. I mean, that could be the insecurity part that we talked about with Holo, but it also can lead to actual separation. Like you are going to be separating yourself from the group. So what you get is the hot loner. And the hot loner is an archetype where it's like, daddy, I love him. I could fix him.
But daddy, I love him.
Yeah. Because he's just always going to be on the outside, and you can pick up that he wants to be part of the group, but yet his pain is keeping him separate. And so there's like a slight physical separation and then like a deep emotional separation because he can't give to you what he wants to give.
Look, for me, 2 of the most emotional separations, I'm going all the way back to the 2 OGs, and that's Crash Landing on You and Goblin. Like the separations in those are big and long, and I'm not going to give away for like the 7 of you who haven't seen these dramas yet, because I don't want to ruin them because they're two of my, favorite dramas. But the separations and look, we love a good separation because we know that there's going to be a reunion that's payoff for it. And both of these separations have reunions that are so fucking emotional that I still I can feel it in the depths of my soul right now, just talking about both of them, especially the goblin one, the reunion after separation.
Yeah. We have two more. So next one is past regrets. Characters may carry the weight of past mistakes or regrets that affect their ability to fully commit to a new relationship. These unresolved issues can introduce angst as the characters must confront their past before they can move forward together. I love this one.
Well, look, especially in K-drama, we have so many K-dramas where characters get to deal with past lives.
The best.
That's so much great regret from past lives. So See You in My 19th Life, Destined with You. I'm not going to give any of those away because that's the crux of those dramas. But when we're dealing with past life regret, that's regret you've been holding on to for a long fucking time.
For centuries.
Yes.
So look, I finished My Sweet Mobster. We are recording that next week. So
I have 4 episodes left, so no spoilers.
Yeah, no spoilers. But I will say, for me, My Sweet Mobster was not angsty, but then the back half was sort of angsty. It's not high on the angst meter. Although for some reason this drama really got me. Not in a crying way, but whatever. But the big one for him, the main lead and the main character is his past regrets. He really regrets his past, the life he led. And he cannot get over that. He fully will not commit or think he's worthy of the heroine until he gets over what he did in his past.
I went with Go Back Couple because the whole premise is I think we regret being together. And so should we go back and figure out if we should not be together? And so that right there becomes angst when you've also bred and have spawn in present day, that you're quite attached to. And so, at the same time, you're I don't know if you're my person, and we have to go back and figure this out. And the interesting choice of we have all of our memories intact. So we're back in our early 20s bods with our 40 plus brains. Is this the path I want to pick? I mean, there's nothing but regret of the future, yet the turmoil of being now with these choices.
Would you have
That's
liked
a great take?
Would you have liked my demon better if he had some regrets? What he did to the cancer parents.
He didn't keep demoning at the end.
Yeah, sending everyone to hell.
It would have been a 180 different drama if the last episode there was a whole lot of regret. I mean, I would have liked to have seen more than regret, though. I'd like to have seen people not burning in hell.
Remedies?
Yeah, I'd like remedies. I'd like it to at least be a commitment to I will figure it out.
I don't want reparations.
Yes, I want reparations. I at least want there to be I have regret and I shall look to make reparations. I don't need to see it all on screen, but just it would have given 42 seconds of conversation. You know what?
Yeah.
Not everyone deserves to go to hell, especially if they're looking out for their pregnant wife and their cancer-stricken kids. Boy, I better figure out a way to undo some of my harm.
Yeah. That's just the first thing I thought of. I was like, my demon should have some regrets. Okay, and then the last is internal struggles, which is kind of similar to the first one we talked about, but internal conflicts such as a character battling their own inner demons or trying to reconcile conflicting desires can create a rich source of angst. These inner struggles often mirror the external challenges the characters face, which is always my favorite. If you manage to get a drama that does a really good job running parallel the external and internal conflicts, which I know I've talked about before, that's always going to make me just bow down to the writers.
I think high school dramas are always good for this because teens have so much inner turmoil because they think they are the center of the universe. And so I just tossed out, Gu Junpyo from Boys Over Flowers and Choi Young-do from The Heirs. There is no problem with them other than, their poor emotional boo-boos.
Yeah. this is I Am Not a Robot again. I don't care if I mention it a million times. But I mean, this kind of overlaps, I think, because this could also be like his past trauma. But I also think there is just a lot going on in him where he is definitely battling more than his trauma. Like he really is battling like an inner demon, like this illness that is brought on. You know what I mean? Like there's a whole lot going on. And his internal angst throughout the entire drama is why it's top tier.
And I went, sorry, I went with another friend of the pod, Healer,
Yeah.
because his internal conflict and the external conflict, those run, I think, very nicely parallel. You have a person who by nature is meant to be kind of like a Batman type of character, like good, bad, alone, parkouring through the rooftops.
Yeah.
And then the emotional boo-boos are all about being alone, yet not wanting to be alone, and Batmaning all around like the heroine's bedroom, hiding in the ceiling cracks to, watch her a la Edward Cullen Twilight reference, hashtag. So yeah, I think that Healer to me, it's a person who's on the outside looking in. They do their job, they're good at their job, yet their job keeps them separate from the world, and their inner conflict is that they're separate from the world and they want to connect. Makes good angst.
Yeah.
And it has one of the best kisses in K-drama where he doesn't want the heroine to know his face because he's playing many identities. So she is wearing a hat. She is in love with the man she has never been able to see. And he can't let her know who he is, so covers her eyes with her hat in the falling snow. Very romantic kissy kiss.
Amazing.
Just after he saved her from an elevator collapse.
Right. You can't forget that. With a fire hose.
Yeah. He John McClaned her right out of that elevator shaft.
God, I love Healer so much. I don't care that we mention it all the time. All right, and last but not least, is there any plot angst that you are jonesing for in a K-drama that you want to see done well? I will go first.
I was like, you've got an answer here.
Because I asked this question for myself. I am still, please, K-drama gods, I am asking for an unrequited love between a bodyguard. He's the one with unrequited love for the idol charge that he is watching. I'm asking for this again. Give it to me.
Watch it right now.
Unrequited love.
Right now.
Bodyguard and idol. That is the angst I want. Give it to me. Thank you.
Unrequited forever?
Well, no.
Not eventually. Like give us Whitney Houston and Kevin Costner.
That's exactly what. Just give me that movie in a K-drama. I don't understand why that's not being done.
You've had since the 90s to do this, K-drama land. Like,
I want to see. I feel like I'm going to throw out just a wish to the universe, because you know what? I said I wanted BDSM K-drama at one point. We got Love and Leashes. So
you did.
I made that happen.
I forgot about that.
I want an angsty why choose K-drama. I want a heroine, and I want there to be multiple suitors who are all amazing. And there's the angst to choose. But babe, you don't need to. We just bring this all in as one big throuple.
Yeah.
That's what I want.
Let's do it. I think that sounds great. Oh my God. Can you imagine? That'd be a good movie.
It's like Mamma Mia, but you're not looking for who's going to win at the end. Everyone gets
everybody wins.
We all go to the cookie store.
Everybody gets a trophy.
Yep. And then it's a cuddle pile.
Amy, is there a paranormal angst that you want? It's always going to be up your alley.
Yeah. I mean, gosh, I don't know if there's a specific angst that I want. I just want to feel like I did watching Alchemy of Souls again.
Oh,
Like, I just want that feeling. I like, especially with the romance. Like, the whole drama had some good tension, but like the angst of the romance, like talk about like forbidden romance. Like, you cannot be with the one you love because they don't own their body and they're also an assassin. Like,
I don't even know what angst you would call alcohol.
I don't even know, but like,
because there's
that
so much
feeling,
angst.
because I love My Sweet Mobster, and I've been watching it like at least 2 episodes a day, and I'm loving it so much. But like, I want that feeling of I cannot let go
Yeah, like it's
of this
owning
drama
me.
until it's done. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, I can't. So yes, paranormal wise, yes, because it's the same way that I felt watching Love Between Fairy and Devil, and those are 2 totally different stories, right?
I know, but
like, that paranormal, like forbidden romance. Just give me more. Give me more.
Yeah, there is something about paranormal forbidden romance, and it's the high stakes, I think.
Yeah.
High stakes are always going to create angst. And I would say, too, for me, which I didn't say at the beginning of the podcast, for me, to really hit the angst, to bring the angst to top tier for me, because I like a good angsty drama, but to make it a top tier drama with that angst, there has to be high stakes. So I'm not a robot. He might die. Like, someone's life has to be on the line.
Yeah.
Like, so that's why sometimes angsty dramas, like say One Spring Night, where the angst is mostly external because it's like familial. It's basically he's a single dad and her parents don't approve. That's like the entire drama for like 16 episodes. That's the angst.
Right. It's not high stakes.
It's not, because it's not high stakes. Because I'm like, you know what?
Yeah.
I mean, if you break up, you break. Like, it's not. So sometimes that angst just grates on me because I sort of just almost don't care by the end because the stakes aren't high.
Right.
But if you give me massive stake or massive angst with like these high stakes of like life or death, then it's gonna
and
get
you get that more in paranormal, but you can get it in contemporary. Like we had it.
Whereas Leah's like, no, just make me suffer with low stakes.
I'm not kicking it out of bed.
Oh yeah,
I'll take it. I have to care enough about, like, if you're giving me external high stakes and you're like, ooh, it's another serial killer for the 90th
no,
time.
not that.
I could care.
That to me is not high stakes because it's so overdone. It's not high stakes.
I'm so done. I can't speak to how much I'm done with it.
Yeah,
but
I get it.
I do like it if I don't need to have quiet. Like, that's boring too. I like it when it's, I guess, like a relatable mental pickle that they've gotten themselves into.
Right.
And then, like, how are they going to get themselves out of it in a way that, like, their characterization has made me care and invested in them? So it doesn't mean that the world has to be burning. I just have to feel like their pain somehow feels like I am curious or touched enough by their pain that I want to know how they're going to get to the other side of it. That's why Our Blue, and I think another thing that I'm going to say about Our Blues, knowing that neither of you are ever going to probably watch it, that really works for me is that it's vignettes. So you get all these stories, but they're short and they all connect because they're all friends. They all work in like the same fish market. They all live in Jeju, but you're getting like each of their core stories is pretty small. So you're not just dying by the end of like these 2 people, I'm going to fucking die.
Right.
Like, you're like, I care enough about them. And now we're kind of like done with their little like episode and we're moving on to another. And sometimes we're going to touch back in with the other one, but they're already done. Like their turmoil.
It's more bite-sized angst.
Yeah,
I like that. See, I like that a lot better.
Good. Yeah, and so I felt like the intensity was good because you'd sign up and be like, I'm ready for this very short burst of intensity, get this like emotional fix, and then be on to the next one. Like, okay, what's this one? And they were each different. Like, you've got teenage pregnancy. Their parents then are single dads who've had a long-standing feud. Like, they all connect in. But it's interesting to see where like the angst is in each of the settings.
Yeah, well, it's interesting too because I think about like happiness. The angst was all external. Like, I guess the conflict, and there was some angst in regards like they were separated at one point, but they were separated because of external factors, like
the virus.
Well, yeah. Well, I'm not trying not to say why, but
that's what happiness is about. Like, it's a zombie.
Yeah. And so they were separated because of a zombie. All right. And so, but them, like that relationship was so low angst. Between them, they were just like, oh, we respect each other, like the entire drama.
Yeah,
you know
no,
what I
there
mean?
was no angst in the relationship.
Yeah,
at
and that's
all.
why, but so I think that's why I don't consider Happiness a high angst drama. I really don't. And a couple Patreon members said the same thing. They're like, actually, Happiness wasn't that high angst for me. And it's like, yeah, because the relationship angst wasn't there. And I feel like most of what we watch and what our audience watches, we kind of want that relationship angst. We want that internal conflict. We want past traumas. We want zip ties.
If there's gonna, I don't need the zip ties,
we want
or
rain trauma.
I don't need zip ties at all.
I know, no zip ties.
I don't need zip ties or an abandoned orphan.
Right.
An abandoned orphan who's not yet an orphan. But I've just been hanging on to him for a month.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
So, yeah. Anyway, but we hope you enjoyed this podcast. I think we talked about a lot of different dramas, which is fun. Again, if you want more recommendations, join our Patreon. They're awesome, and you can help contribute sometimes to our. Yeah, I mean, sometimes when we're like, we don't know what to do, we ask them and they tell us.
What do you want to see? Yeah, or what do you want to hear?
Yeah, and we're usually very accommodating. So anyway, we hope you enjoyed the topic on angst. I had a lot of fun. This was a really fun topic. I did too.
It's great when we're three together.
We
haven't had that much this summer, so it's nice to be back together.
So it was nice to.
It's not going to last, folks. We've all got back to school stuff coming up, so yeah, we'll be back. We'll get back in our groove. But yeah, we'll see y'all next time. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you. Annyeong.
Kamsahamnida. Thank you for listening to Afternoona Delight. Where can you find us outside the pod? Head on over to afternoonadelight.com. That's AFTERNOONADELIGHT.com. You'll find links to all our social media, our book recs, K-pop and K-skincare recs, and if you want even more Afternoona Delight, because really who doesn't, you can join our Patreon, where you can choose the patron level that's right for you. Join in daily K-drama conversations, listen to bonus podcast episodes just for patrons, and participate in our monthly live K-drama support group via Zoom. We can't wait for you to be a part of the community. Until next time, annyeong!